Many of the locations in Golden Sun are based on real locations, like Weyard is an alternate universe of Earth, where it is flat and psychic powers are a very real force. But everything else is similar. I'll start with the continents and then go to the locations of each continent. Angara takes its name from the Russian subcontinent Russians and pre-Russians once believed themselves to exist on. Those who know their basic North American geography will know Russia is known famously as the nation that exists on multiple continents, being Europe and Asia. In other nations, however, Europe and Asia are considered one continent called Eurasia. Angara actually contains most of Eurasia's locations. Figuratively, Mount Aleph is the origin of all life in Weyard. Similar to other concepts such as the Garden of Eden or an alien spaceship, its name draws from Alpha or Aleph, the ancestor glyph of Alpha or A, signifying the beginning. Physically, it may also be based on the Alps, considering it is in a similar location to the Alps. Perhaps specifically Hochhalter, an alpine mountain known for rock slides. Similarly, Isaac and Matthew both continue the Hebrew naming scheme, representing a significant figure in the Abrahamic faiths and a writer of the Christian gospel. In other languages, the protagonist's names don't continually carry the same theming. The Wise One has several similarities to angels or the oracles, through which the Hebrew God spoke to his people, such as through a tree. In truth, he's a philosopher's stone and a homunculus. Formed in the distant past by alchemists and after his failed attempt at murdering Alex, Alex seems to have plans to kill the Wise One. Bilibin is named after a Russian gold mining town called Bilibino. Kolyma is named after the region of Kolyma in Russia that Bilibin also resides in. This region was known for mining and lumber towns, just like the two towns in this region. Through geography squishing, Imul was meant to be Norway. It takes its name from Ymir, a Norse monster born of icy waters who the Norse gods murdered to make the continents. Kind of like Xenoblade, but Norse and taken in pieces that were cut up and laid. Xi'an? Xi'an? No, this is pronounced Cheyenne, and based on the ancient Chinese capital city of the same name. This city also happens to be the start of the Silk Road both in Weyard and Earth. Also, the ruler Fe and his daughter both take inspiration from Fezi, the ruler of the Qin dynasty, and in Japan, Fe's name is Qin. This is based on the Altan Mountains that join China to the Arabian or Middle Eastern region of Asia. The town has a mine because Altan means gold in the language family of that region. This is a shortening of the name of the real Taklamakan Desert in China in the path of the Silk Road. This may be in the analogous region of southern Georgia or Turkey, as it borders the Karagal Sea, which most closely resembles the Black Sea in the northern portion of the Mediterranean Sea, and appears to separate the Arabian area from the European area, like the Caucasus region. In Japan, called Trevi, this appears to be based on Rome, considering Colosso is clearly meant to represent the Colosseum, and is known for its fountain, though that alone could mean it represents Kansas City. But Toby also concludes the Silk Road arc, just like Rome was the end of the line. Champa was a location in Vietnam that eventually had to resort to piracy. This is an abandoned city likely based on the Celtic or pre-Celtic people, who sometimes built structures such as Stonehenge for unknown reasons and abandoned them. Or maybe the Celts just asked for a place to stay for a bit, and then took their land. This is the equivalent of the Angkor Ruins, a technologically advanced society in Cambodia, which is in Asia. The whole look of this dungeon is in line with Angkor. And they totally didn't partially fall because they went to war and lost against a location I'm going to talk about in a couple minutes that apparently had been submerged at the time, or was a tiny island. Now I need to note, Alchemy's release wrecked the layout of Weyard, so there are going to be a lot of things where they shouldn't be, like the Goma Mountains being directly south of Mount Aleph, and a plateau on the Goma Mountains is where you start Dark Dawn. While we aren't officially looking at specific areas, Vale refugees went to Patra's Place, which may or may not be Vault, a town south of Vale with nothing interesting about it. In Japan, this is called Ganpa, which is a word that describes a Buddhist monastery, hence the region is known by this name because of the ruins of the monastery. This is based on the city of Harappa, that was founded almost 5,000 years ago in Pakistan, and left in ruins later. The structure of their city was advanced for the time, and they were one of the earliest societies to cockfight. In Japan, this is Corridor, and an English passage. It's a word pun. It seems a surprising number of people missed it for the longest time. This is meant to represent a Chinese dynasty since Chao is Chinese for dynasty. It is built on top of the Ouroboros Labyrinth, Ouroboros being the name for the depiction of a snake eating itself from tail to end, symbolizing the infinite. This became a common concept of alchemy, and the symbol could be seen throughout the dungeon. This is primarily based on the pre-Tai Ayutthaya kingdom. What is interesting is one of their primary crops was rice they grew using irrigation systems. Also, remember the Angkor, the most powerful kingdom in the region? Ayutthaya went to war with them during their rise and destroyed their society in an attempt to assert their dominance. This is also home to Barite Temple, which is a caste in Hindu which was adapted for the Ayutthayan religion. Narai, however, was the name of a famous Ayutthayan king, and it could be a temple dedicated in his honor. In Japan, this is known as Verkhne, a Ukrainian city that means upper, which does describe Belensk's location and fits with all of the Russian and Ukrainian names used in Belensk. In Japan, this uses Rajio, the informal Japanese name for the Russian port Vladivostok on the east coast. The Japanese name is Saka, which is the name of a nation that makes up part of Russia. While officially an independent nation, it's closer to a state or province. So it is officially similar to what the US was supposed to be originally, a coalition of independent regions just below independent nations that agreed to share money, resources, and a base set of laws and legal protections, but otherwise totally independent. I say officially because I don't think Russia is really a coalition of independent nations, and it's more like a Taiwan situation where referring to it as an independent nation in China's presence is enough to start a war. This is obviously based on the Great Wall of China that isolates China from their northern neighbors, and this connects to Apollo Sanctum, so named because Apollo was the Greek god of sunlight. Nihon is a Japanese word to describe Japan. This island nation had a Zumo, where you played through a Japanese myth. The new city Yamato was likely based on the word Yamato, which means Japan or the Japanese identity. And remember, share everywhere if you care.